This is Armed American Radio's Daily Defense.
Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, because they don't want me to, that's why I do it.
Presented by the National Rifle Association from the 6 Hour Studios on the Patriot Mobile Platinum microphone.
They're never going to stop us here.
Here is your host, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting the enemies of freedom, Mark Walters.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense begins right now. How the heck are you? You're in the 6 Hour Studios with me, Mark Walters, filling your prescription for freedom today and every day. And on the Monday through Friday daily broadcast, we're here in front of the Patriot Mobile Communication and Command Center microphone. And it's all being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. We were listening to the big show last night. Big announcement made last night. We'll talk more about that today, but we are honored and thrilled to be working together with the National Rifle Association as we push forward. And you're going to hear me all over this today, ladies and gentlemen. That association has never been more important than it is right now today with what went down in Maryland. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Greg in Dallas, Texas, how you doing, my brother?
Pretty good, man. Here we are, back in the seat.
Big news day today in our realm, right?
Yep.
Big news day today in our world. I'll let you know. We're not on Rumble today, and we are not on Facebook today. That is by design, ladies and gentlemen. That is by design. Okay, so you can catch us Greg,
over on YouTube and on X. Yep.
YouTube.
All right, yeah. If you want to watch the show, head over to YouTube. Do a search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters. Over on X, it's at AAR Mark. If you want to join our live chat, download Telegram, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
And that will do it. Ladies and gentlemen, humongous news today. Very disappointing news today. Broke at 10 o'clock this morning. SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, has rejected the Maryland Fourth Circuit assault weapon ban and magazine ban cases. 2 cases, in fact. And that would be the Snopes case in Maryland and, of course, the Ocean State Tactical case, which dealt with the magazine capacity ban. Denied. After how many years, Greg, have we been talking about this one?
It's many years. I can't recall how many years exactly, but I know a lot.
It's been through record conferences, close to 18 conferences at Supreme Court. And as late as early as last night, Cam Edwards and I were talking about this in great detail last night. And again, our money was on Supreme Court taking this case because they had already granted cert to the case. Vacated the decision, remanded it back to the Fourth Circuit. The entire Fourth Circuit heard it after playing. I got to be really careful here. This angers me today. But after playing games with this thing for over a year, the entire Fourth Circuit upheld Maryland's unconstitutional ban of America's most popular rifle as constitutional. We felt very confident. You've heard Alan Gottlieb on this program talk about this over many, many, many months. We know that if Supreme Court had taken this case, we were going to win it. So why didn't they take the case? What is it? Kavanaugh gave us a window. So if I'm the left, I'm not doing a powwow dance around the campfire just yet. But they will. If you live behind the blue wall, ladies and gentlemen, right now, you had better be paying very careful attention to what we're about to talk about today. And Andy Hoosier will join me in a moment, but I've got a few things I want to mention on this. First, let me read you directly from Kavanaugh's statement with the Supreme Court denying this case. And there's a lot to discuss here, and we're going to go into all of it. Given that millions of Americans own AR-15s and that a significant majority of the states allow possession of those rifles, petitioners have a strong argument, that would be Snopes, that AR-15s are in common use by law-abiding citizens and therefore are protected by the Second Amendment under Heller. If so, then the Fourth Circuit would have erred by holding that Maryland's ban on AR-15s comply with the Second Amendment. Under this court's Second Amendment precedents, moreover, it can be analytically difficult to distinguish the AR-15s at issue here from the handguns at issue in Heller. AR-15s are semi-automatic, but so too are most handguns. Semi-automatic handguns and rifles are distinct from automatic firearms, such as the M16 automatic rifle used by the military. Law-abiding citizens use both AR-15s and handguns for a variety of lawful purposes, including self-defense in the home. For their part, criminals use both AR-15s and handguns, as well as a variety of other lawful weapons and products in unlawful ways that threaten public safety. But handguns can be more easily carried and concealed than rifles, and handguns, not rifles, are used in the vast majority of murders and other violent crimes that individuals commit with guns in America. In short, under this court's precedents, the Fourth Circuit's decision is questionable. Now, here's where you want to pay very careful attention This will be the crux of what we'll be talking about today. Although the court today denies cert, a denial of cert does not mean that the court agrees with a lower court decision or that the issue is not worthy of review. The AR-15 issue was recently decided by the First Circuit and is currently being considered by several other courts of appeals. We'll tell you about those in just a moment. Opinions from other courts of appeals should assist this court's ultimate decision-making on the AR-15 issue. Additional petitions for cert will likely be before this court shortly, and in my view, this court should and presumably will address the AR-15 issue soon in the next term or two. Lots to unpack there. Costas Moros made the following statement on his X feed. The optimistic answer is they were negotiating behind the scenes and decided they didn't want the issue now, but agreed to take a future case soon. Kavanaugh's statement, basically. The pessimistic answer is they are spineless and will never meaningfully enforce Bruen. I find that one hard to buy, ladies and gentlemen. And when you look at Kavanaugh's statement in greater detail, I think it makes sense that they're not spineless in this. But for whatever reason, and we'll go into some of what we think might be those reasons, we really don't know. We'll pontificate, we'll bloviate, and we will speculate because that's all that we can do. Now, on another note, Alan Gottlieb and the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms put a statement out today. And as a board member of the CCR-KBA, I want to read this statement to you, and we'll get this out of the way. It'll probably be done by the time the segment is over, and then we'll go to Andy for the discussion for the rest of the day. Andy, I appreciate your patience. So here we have a statement from Alan Gottlieb in the CCR-KBA. CCR-KBA disappointed as SCOTUS declines to hear Maryland gun ban case. The Citizens Committee is highly disappointed that at this time the U.S. Supreme Court has decided not to hear our important case challenging the ban on so-called assault rifles in the state of Maryland. CCR-KBA joined with the Second Amendment Foundation and others in this case known as Snope v. Brown. However, noted CCR-KB Chairman Alan Gottlieb, it is encouraging Justice Brett Kavanaugh has signaled it is more than likely the court will hear one of several other challenges to bans on semi-automatic rifles that are currently in the legal pipeline. We recognize, Gottlieb continued, that the court is currently inundated with a heavy caseload that includes well over 100 lawsuits filed by left-wing interests, many of which are on the court's emergency docket, making it impossible to hear many pending cases in an orderly fashion. Ladies and gentlemen, continuing with this to close it out, Snope v. Brown is one of the cases in which CCR-KBA is directly involved as a plaintiff. That's from Gottlieb. He called the challenge of Maryland's gun ban an issue of critical national importance because it deals with the ability of Maryland residents to purchase and own what is currently the most popular rifle in the country. It is estimated that more than 20 million such firearms are in private hands today, and more are being purchased across most of the United States every single day. Only 10 states and the District of Columbia have enacted some type of restrictions on this class of firearms. Gottlieb observed, and I quote, "The modern semi-automatic is definitely in common use. Our primary concern is that American gun owners will have to once again wait for the high court to accept a case and determine whether state-level bans violate the Constitution's Second Amendment, which we definitely believe is the case. Remember, a right delayed is a right denied." Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason, welcome in. Let's get this very important conversation started today, my friend. How are you?
Man, living the dream. Yeah, what a day it is, and a lot of information to break down there, it sounds like. Holy cow.
Yeah, there's a ton to break down, and I want to start with Kavanaugh. I've got some private text messages from Alan, and I don't believe, basically it was already stated in the press release when I spoke with Alan earlier, but let me just read a couple of these statements from him. We'll go into some of what we discussed a little bit about Kavanaugh. My first statement to Alan, I can't read on the airwaves, and I'm not going to try. I said, he said, and Alan said regarding why this was denied, he said the fifth vote was probably not there yet, waiting for other cases to work the way up. So let's talk about the fifth vote. Alito, Gorsuch, and Thomas. Thomas wrote a dissent. We'll get into that before the program ends. And as you would expect from Thomas, it was a scathing dissent, basically saying this court is dragging its feet. The Second Amendment is now a right being denied, and this case should have been taken by this court. So who does that leave? That leaves Roberts and Barrett, right?
30.
Yeah.
That leaves Roberts and Barrett.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to take a break, Andy, so hold on to that. Thank you, I appreciate your patience while we got through these opening remarks here on this to set the stage for the remaining 3 segments. But when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about this. We're going to break it down. We're going to speculate. We're going to bloviate. We're going to pontificate, have some fun with it. But as much as I hate to say this, I want you to stay positive here. And I'm going to leave you as we go to the break with this. If you live behind the blue wall, ladies and gentlemen, the left is going to be coming after you like nobody's business. They're going to jump all over this to do it. And now is the perfect time to tell you that you need the National Rifle Association in your corner in the NRA ILA. If you are not yet a member, this should get you off your duff. Well, we're safe. Trump's in office. Yeah? Lots to cover as to why that's not necessarily the case. We'll be right back with Andy. Internet only now, right?
Yep. I guess.
Me too. This is bullshit right out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. However, there is a silver lining to this. And sadly to us, as Alan mentioned, sadly for us, yet again, we have to wait for the court. You know, we get sick and tired of waiting, particularly in a case like this that checked every single box. But the court, or at least a majority of the justices, or let's just say this, at least 5 of the justices, or 6 of the justices, because it takes 4. So you got Kavanaugh writing about this, and you got Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas agreeing with the dissent, and Kavanaugh making that statement. It tells me that Kavanaugh was probably the one that wasn't the 4th. Because if he was, there would have been a cert grant. So that means Barrett and Roberts. Or does it? That's what we're going to talk about, guys. Either way, it's a fascinating conversation. And yet again, we're stuck on our asses waiting around. But we will win this. Guys, if you're watching on your screens over on YouTube or over here on X, wherever you're at, you can click that live link below me here, below that spinning logo. That is a live link. You can join the NRA. It will take you right there to the AAR join page. You'll get a few bucks off. And I would highly recommend that you do that at this point, particularly if you live behind a blue wall. It doesn't matter where you live. This is an American issue. This is a freedom issue. This is a constitutional issue that applies to all of us. But if you're behind the blue wall, they are going to be all over this. You know how they act. Yay, Maryland assault weapons bans are constitutional. That's not what this court said, and that's why we just mentioned and started off with Kavanaugh's statement. But that's what they're going to do. So we're not going to see anything on this for at least 2 more terms. What happens in 2026? Midterms. What can happen to the House? Flip. Guys, this is very serious stuff. Something happens to Thomas, who's aging. This is very serious. Engage. We need you to engage.
30.
Back at you guys. I'm going to leave that NRA link up for you if you're watching on your screens. Please click it. Join. It's $35, folks. How much do you value your freedom and your guns?
The following segment of Armed American Radio's Daily Defense is being brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR and use the AAR promo code to get free activation today. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, welcome back to the show indeed. Pleasure to have you here. Mark Walters in the 6 Hour Studios with you here on the Patriot Mobile microphone at the Command Center. And it's all being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Check out all of our partners. You can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. And we've got some new announcements on that coming up in the next few weeks as well. Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason. Welcome back, brother. Let's start unpacking this, okay?
Yeah.
What's your gut tell you when you hear this?
Well, I think the dissent is right on it's too political right now and they don't have the votes. And I think, honestly, to be honest, I think Roberts is the one that's the holdout, which is really unfortunate. But I really think that they're not going to take the case unless they know they have the votes for it. And we don't have the votes for it right now, which is really unfortunate, really sad, as the opinion was correct in the sense that we're now violating the Second Amendment essentially because we haven't made a decision to protect the Second Amendment in firearms that are out in the streets that a vast majority of Americans have, as you mentioned before. So I think it's really sad that we have to go through this battle. But as you also said, very optimistic that there will be other cases. There are other cases that are being decided on. This is going to a potential another court, and one of them will eventually make it to the Supreme Court, and the ruling will be made, I think, in the proper manner. So it is frustrating right now, and it will happen. We just have to bide our time and wait for it to happen when the stars align and we can actually get a proper judgment on this.
Yeah, that's going to require patience. It always does, but it's frustrating. Let me read you a statement from Giffords on X, formerly known as Twitter, 3 hours ago. Breaking. SCOTUS declined to hear a major challenge to Maryland's assault weapons ban. Once again, courts are letting gun laws stand because they work. These laws keep dangerous weapons away from dangerous people, prevent violence, and protect our families. Now, we all know that's a bunch of bull gig garbage, but that's exactly the response we expect to hear from a bunch of bull gig liars, and that's what they are. And folks, we knew they were going to do this. But I'm going to tell you right now, they ought not be dancing around that campfire right now. And all you have to do is go back and look at Kavanaugh's statement. Now, there's a couple things to unpack here. If Gorsuch signs on with the dissent, Alito with the dissent, and Thomas, it only takes 4 justices, to grant cert on a case. Kavanaugh wrote the statement. Wouldn't he be the 4th? So,
yeah, I mean,
okay, there's that. And then you mentioned Roberts, okay? I'm not convinced on Roberts. I was on Cam and Company this morning, and it was funny because I don't get a lot of sleep on Sundays after the Monster Show, Andy, as you know. And my phone rang this morning, and then boom, everything started blowing up. But it was Cam Edwards that reached out to me right away and said, well, denied. That's where I first heard it. He said, will you come on Cam and Company? So I did an appearance on Cam and Company talking about this before I even knew Thomas's dissent was out there, okay, because it was breaking so fast. It wasn't until after I did Cam and Company that I was able to go back and read Thomas's dissent. We'll get into a little bit of that because Thomas makes it very clear, as you would expect, that this court made a big mistake and yet again is relegating the Second Amendment to a second-class right. And he is spot on. But I don't think it's Roberts. Remember, Roberts voted with us in Heller, McDonald, and Bruin. I find it very difficult to believe that he doesn't believe that AR-15s, the most common rifle in America, are in common use. I find that hard to believe. I want to know where Barrett is on this. And if I'm right about Roberts and Kavanaugh wrote that statement, there doesn't appear to be any reason why they wouldn't have granted cert, because that's 4 to take it, and I'll take a 5-4 win. I'll take a 1-0 win. It still goes down as a win, Andy. So there's a lot going on here, which is why I'm going to kind of defer back quickly to what Alan said, that there are other cases coming up. They want to see what the lower courts are doing. And I threw this out at Cam and Company, and I'll toss it out to you now. The First Circuit, Third Circuit, and Seventh Circuit have similar cases right now. I don't find it, nor did Cam find it, and I don't believe anybody in the gun rights activism arena believes that any one of those courts are going to do anything but uphold gun bans as constitutional, which makes it even more important for the court after Maryland. Because remember, the Maryland case doesn't go away. They just didn't grant it cert. It's still there. Okay, I mean, the case is dead, but it's still an example of a case. So they're going to look back at the history of this, and they're going to say, okay, the Fourth Circuit decided this, 1st, 3rd, and 7th, it's now time we take this case and put a stop to it. So it's just going to add a little bit more weight. And if you go back to Kavanaugh's statement, he made it very clear, and he signaled with a wink and a nod that this court was going to take one of these cases that would likely be coming across their desks soon and be heard over the next 2 terms, Andy. So with all of that, take it away.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I am optimistic about that. And I love it because there is a lot of drama in this administration under Donald Trump, and especially even with the Supreme Court, too. So I can see that. And I would love to see all of these lower courts, these circuit courts all over the country, make this decision that, yes, this ban can be upheld. Yes, this ban can be upheld. Yes, this ban can be upheld, showing and almost exposing the corruption, which you got to remember, the court system, as much as we try to say it's non-political, it's the judiciary branch. They just interpret the Constitution. We know very clearly there's a lot of politics at play in it all across the board on when they step down and the decisions they make. And even the Democrats openly admit that's why they put so many federal judges in place as they did, to try and stop and slow down the Trump agenda when he gets back into office. So that being said, we know politics is in play. So let's look at it from the political lens, which is what I like to do. That the Supreme Court, if this is what they're doing, and if so, it would be genius and hilarious and totally a Trump move, by the way, if this is what they do, is wait for all of these lower courts to make their decision that, yes, it can be upheld. Yes, it can be upheld. Yes, we can ban these assault rifles, quote unquote, assault rifles and ARs. And they make all these decisions until the Supreme Court comes in and then exposes all of this corruption, all of this fraud, all of this political statement, and then rules against them, overturns every one of them, and then says, hey, by the way, these courts obviously aren't making the right choices. You guys need to do something to start replacing a lot of these judges and start upheaving a lot of these court systems because they're not interpreting the Constitution the way that they're supposed to. If that is the plan and they wait for all these lower courts to make that decision before they drop the bomb and just reverse all of them, that's totally a Trump-style move, and it totally wouldn't put it past the people that got into place because of Donald Trump on the Supreme Court to make a move like that as well, and to drop that bombshell and to watch the lower courts squirm. I mean, they're really good at doing that, and that would be a total Trump style. So I would be excited if that would be the case, and I honestly wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, I mean, I believe at this point it's honestly, I'm gonna go with Alan's position on this, and he was very calm, cool, and collected when I spoke to him. I didn't sense the frustration. I mean, I sense the frustration, ladies and gentlemen, but not to my extent. I'm a little bit more type AAA than Alan is. So my reaction was a little bit more visceral, I think, than Alan's was, because Alan is a little bit more calmer and cooler and level-headed. And when we come back, I'll explain what I mean about his level-headed response here, and we'll kind of break down the position the court finds itself in right now. And the worst part about all of this, folks, and Andy yourself included, is we will never know. They will never tell us. Yeah. So we're left with this. We're left with discussing this and analyzing, and it's kind of simple to do when you look back at previous votes. I mean, we do have some records here to look back at. Barrett, not so much. Robert, 3 huge pro 2A decisions with Roberts. Okay, Kavanaugh's statement was very bold, and when we come back, we'll ask, why did he write that statement? It wasn't a dissent. It was a statement. Why did he write it? Very unusual. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense continues. We're here to talk about it with you. Don't go away. And by the way, join the NRA. They need you now.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is proudly being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Help us defend freedom by visiting nra.org/AAR and join today. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, welcome back to the show indeed, ladies and gentlemen. And honest to God, it's never been as important as it is today. It's always been important to be a member of the National Rifle Association, but I got to tell you guys, after this, we have a lot coming up. Remember, the left doesn't want to take your guns, except they do want to take your guns, and they're all championing banning your guns, the most popular rifle in America. And remember, it's not just the AR-15. It's whatever they define an assault weapon to be. So
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
That's right. And whatever else you have that they define or choose to define as an assault weapon. What happens after the midterms? Trump's still in office. It's okay. It doesn't matter. The left will never stop. They've been had fuel just thrown on their fire today. Even though Kavanaugh's statement says what it says. Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason, welcome back. Let's dig into this, brother. You know, I said that the Gorsuch and Alito signed on to the dissent. They did not. Kavanaugh pointed out, let me make this correction. This is Kavanaugh's statement. The petition for writ of certiorari is denied. Justice Alito and Justice Gorsuch would grant the petition for a writ of certiorari. So we know Thomas would because he wrote the dissent. So that's 3.
Right.
Obviously, Kavanaugh did not vote to grant cert, or he would have been 4. So that's why he throws this statement out. And he clearly is not speaking for Thomas here. And I don't think he's speaking for Gorsuch or Alito because he says right here in his opening statement, the writ of cert is denied. Justice Alito and Justice Gorsuch would grant the petition. So it's Kavanaugh, ladies and gentlemen. Forget Roberts and Barrett right now. Kavanaugh's the one that wrote the statement, Andy. That's 4. That's enough to grant cert. So there's something else going on. We can discern that from this. There's no question about it. What it is, we don't know. We speculate. And that's what we're going to do because it is a talk radio show. So having said that, how disappointed are you in Kavanaugh? Well, let me go ahead and vote against vote against cert here. But I'm going to put a statement out that puts people at ease to let them know that we're going to hear one of these cases. Meanwhile, Thomas says in his dissent, this is a huge importance for Americans. You have tens of millions of Americans that are waiting for this court to make a decision on the 30+ million guns that they already own in 41 states lawfully. Go ahead, man. Take it away. Angry marks start coming out, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, I'm the optimist here. I think that they are going to lay down a bombshell after these lower courts make a decision, which would be really hilarious. But you're right. I mean, there's been a few on the fence Supreme Court justices on some issues, and Kavanaugh has been one of those where he has not voted really well on a lot of different issues, and it's unfortunate. So he could be the speculation of whether he would be that vote number 4 or not in order to allow this to move forward. But there's no way you can avoid it. You can't make a decision that's going to ban one of the most popular firearms in the nation and then try to start taking I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to grandfather it in which case it's irrelevant if
right.
There's so many millions of Americans that actually have that firearm. You can't do that. If you try to start confiscating, then that's an entirely different issue. If you're doing a forced buyback, which is essentially a confiscation, then you're dealing with an entirely different issue. So it's not going away, and the firearm's not going away, and the court cases are not going away at all, because these local communities can try and start banning, can try and get rid of them from the communities. But with so many people that purchase these guns, they're not going to go away anytime soon. The Supreme Court has to make a decision on this, especially with so many different opinions from so many different courts around the country right now. They're going to have to make a decision. The question is, when will they make a legitimate decision on this issue? The fact that they're not right now, again, it's speculation on why, whether they have enough votes, whether they want to do the big bombshell at the end. But regardless, they will have to make the case at some point, whether they just didn't like the wording or they didn't like the attorneys that were trying to present this or whatever the case is. Who knows? But I'm optimistic at the end of the day they will make the decision. And even though there has, Kavanaugh and Barrett and a few others have maybe made some wonky decisions in the past. I mean, this is kind of a cut and dry case because even they recognize if there's Mark, how many millions of people do you think, just logically, do you think may have an AR style firearm?
There are millions. Not
Yeah,
a million,
so,
not 2 million.
Yeah.
Tens
Multis
of
of
millions,
millions.
Tens of millions of Americans.
Let's just
own these
throw a number
popular
out there, and
rifles.
let's just throw a number out, and let's just say 30 million. Let's say that there are more of those firearms or more households that have those firearms than there are illegal migrants that Joe Biden brought in for the past 4 years.
Great
let's
analogy,
just
by the way.
speculate. Let's just speculate it that way. You cannot say all of a sudden that, boom, this gun is illegal, you're not allowed to have it, and that law enforcement is allowed to start taking those away because they're not accepted in society. Logically, that is not possible. We can't ship 20 million people out of this country with the mass deportation efforts that Trump's doing. You cannot get rid of 30 million of these style firearms in the nation that are spread all over the country. You just can't do it. So the Supreme Court is going to take that as a factor. And whenever they do take up this case, then they're going to make the right decision. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and the multiple cases in the other circuits working their way through, as Kavanaugh pointed out. Again, I find it fascinating that he writes this statement. In other words, there's going to be a lot of pissed off people. I know that. I better write this statement. And at the top of the statement, I want to make it clear that Gorsuch, Alito would have signed on for cert. Well, of course we know Thomas would have because he wrote the dissent. So that leaves Kavanaugh, Roberts, and Barrett because he didn't say Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, or Barrett. If he did, it would have been granted cert. He left them out for a reason. Those two are part of the issue that didn't want to grant cert to this case. Kavanaugh just exposed himself. The emperor has no clothes at this point. So he puts this.
Well, and maybe it's
out.
one of those where there are a few weaklings or spineless ones, and Kavanaugh, I think, is one of those where he has gone soft on a few issues, and maybe he's the one waiting to decide based on what these lower courts end up doing. Maybe that's what his decision is going to be. I mean, Roberts has done the same thing before. Let's let the lower courts make all these decisions because obviously we can't have layer after layer after layer of corrupt courts that don't know what the hell they're doing, making bad decisions. So let's let all of them make these decisions. Then I'll come to the opinion that I have on the issue as well. Maybe that's what they're doing.
Well, I think Kavanaugh in this signaled. You can read into some of these statements. You can read into this, okay? And let's do this real quick, just for fun. Let's see. Ruled the Second Amendment must be interpreted in light of context history. The court further determined that the Second Amendment protects those weapons that are in common use. He admits that the case is made and can be made that these are in common use, 41 states, etc. So he's basically signaling, guys, I'm with you here. Read me. Wink, wink, wink. We're just not in a position to take this case right now. We have other things that are pressing, and there are other cases that will be coming to us that we can take down the road. And look, I as much as I hate to admit this, I understand from the judicial standpoint here why they would maybe want to wait because they have been prone to do this post-Bruin. They want to see what the lower courts are deciding in a post-Bruin environment. However, this case has already checked the boxes. This case was already done. This case has been decided on the merits. Okay, there wasn't one box that was left open. It checked them already. And it seems to me that Kavanaugh is throwing this out there, letting people know that, let me just read his last statement. Additional petitions for cert will likely be before this court shortly. And in my view, this court should and presumably will address the AR-15 issue soon in the next term or two. So there was some specificity there, Andy. And I think maybe Kavanaugh...
That is encouraging.
It is encouraging. There's no question about that. But what's discouraging is the fact that we got to sit on our duffs again, like Thomas pointed out in his dissent. We'll go to some quotes from Thomas in his dissent when we come back from this break. Hours flying right by, guys. We knew it was going to happen when this popped today. But nonetheless, it is encouraging from Kavanaugh. It's just the timestamp here. For God's sakes, let's get this on. Let's put these... Let's just put the anti-gunners to bed. There we go. That's the nice way. We'll be right back. All right, guys, I just had an interesting conversation with Cam Edwards during the break, and I'll bring some of that conversation to you about our discussion when we return here in just 20 seconds. Mics and cameras are up.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by AttorneysOnRetainer.com. AttorneysOnRetainer.com. Visit them today. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, visit them today. I just got, oh, my hat's all crooked here. I just got my Attorneys on Retainer membership card today. And it was a couple weeks back that I found myself with an attorney on retainer. Attorney-client privilege. It's mine. It's all mine. God forbid I have to use my firearm right now for whatever purpose. I've got a team of attorneys, not just one attorney, but an entire team in the nation's only firm whose sole focus is defending me in a self-defense case. That's all they do in all 50 states. I don't know why you wouldn't do this. I mean, some things are no-brainers, folks. It is. You need some emergency supplies in your house. That's just a no-brainer. Just like your guns need ammo, that's a no-brainer. Go to Ammo Squared. These things are no-brainers. National Rifle Association, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, it's always been a no-brainer to be a member of the NRA. You can disagree with what happened in the past, but when you hear what we're talking about here today, it is a no-brainer, and it is a no-brainer to have an attorney at $35 a month and get $35 off your sign-up just to have your attorney in your back pocket. Because the moment something happens, it's too late. You can't go there and try to do it at that point. Do it in advance. We offer you these great things for a reason. All of our great partners, you can find them all of them, at armedamericanradio.com. And if you want to get that discount and you don't go to Armed American Radio regarding the National Rifle Association, you just visit nra.org/AAR, and it will take you right to the landing page. And you'll still get great discounts otherwise, but use the AAR promo code. It says, thanks, man, for sponsoring Armed American Radio. We appreciate it. Attorneys on Retainer, same thing. Just go to the website or go to attorneysonretainer.com and use the AAR promo code. Either way, it's simple. We've got them there for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. These are great companies that have your back when you need it the most. And right now, particularly if you're living behind the blue wall, folks, you believe me when I tell you how important the NRA ILA is getting ready to be to you, because this is going to be an ongoing battle. There's no doubt about it. All right, guys, welcome back in. Andy Hoosier, Voice of Reason. I was speaking with Cam Edwards during the break, and about some things that we didn't talk about on Cam and Company because we didn't know enough at the time. The story broke very quickly, and we had to go to air and to tape. So we didn't get a chance to dissect it as much. But clearly, Cam is in agreement with us that it's Kavanaugh. Well, clearly it was Kavanaugh because he wrote the letter, and it only takes 4 justices to grant cert. So he clearly denied the cert petition himself. He did it. Now, again, we go back to this question, why, right? Well, there's 2 issues here at hand that Cam and I were just talking about during the break. Number one, as Alan said, the court's very busy. They got a lot on their plate right now. There are other cases coming up. It's likely a docket issue. That absolutely could be the case. The other case is Roberts or Barrett. Kavanaugh might not have been convinced, Andy, that those 2 were there because it takes 5 to win a case on a split court. And if they were confident they would have had the 5th vote, they likely would have granted cert. So there's that. Now, let's analyze that and break it down quickly. That means Roberts or Barrett is on the fence. I find it hard to believe that Roberts is the one on the fence when he has voted with us in all 3 major Supreme Court cases dating back to Heller in 2008, McDonald 2010, and Bruen in 2022. So that leaves Barrett. Now, why do I say that about Roberts, who's been a little wishy-washy? I'm not a huge fan of Roberts, but when it comes to this issue, he's protected our Second Amendment on those 3 cases. Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason, and the husband of Mrs. Hoosier Reason, voice of reason, and the father of little voice of reason, the daughter, who I saw the pictures of, absolutely gorgeous. You're blessed, brother. But I, honestly, that means Barrett might be on the fence. I'm gonna kind of lean towards that just by looking at this. When you look at precedent of how Roberts has voted in the past, Andy, I don't see him reversing course after the most recent case. And all of these cases have mentioned in common use. So I don't see it being him. I see it being Barrett on the fence. But if that's the case, Cam asked the question, and Roberts is there, they would have had the votes. Why didn't they just take it? Which kind of swings us right back to the pendulum. Well, we're just too busy right now. So that's what's frustrating about this, ladies and gentlemen. But it is fun to talk about. Andy, go for it.
Yeah, it is fun to talk about. And that begs the question again, if it is Barrett, then if there are lower decisions from lower courts that are being made, then what will that do to sway the vote one way or the other? Will that reconfirm for her to be like, yeah, I don't know that I'm going to vote for this, and we don't have the votes and we don't want to take it? Or is that going to lead to the whole bombshell theory of, you know what, let's make them all make their decisions, then we'll come in and just reverse all of it and just blow the whole thing up, and throw the grenade in there. So I don't know much about where she would stand on this issue if it is her that's kind of the holdout, and having more decisions from lower courts that want to ban ARs, what that would do in her decision-making process moving forward for when they do take this up. Or it could be something as simple as, like you mentioned, we're coming up to the end of our session. Obviously, we don't want to take anything on right now. Maybe we have some other cases that we think that could be better worded or that are going to come up and be challenged anyways, so therefore we want to take those up instead of this one particularly. I mean, there's so much to speculate on, but it could be a timing issue where, it's now turned into a circus every year where we look towards the end of June for the Supreme Court to come out and just lay out all of their decisions and drop the bombshell on everything. And that's coming up in a couple of weeks right now. And I don't know that they want this attention of taking on a major gun case right now when they're about ready to release all of these decisions moving forward. So we'll see what happens.
What are they, Chicken Littles? That's their freaking job. That's their job. That
know,
goes back to Costas Morris' statement that they're just spineless. Ooh.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Mark. They're going into their summer vacation. They don't want to think about anything else until fall, until the winter, when they reconvene in September, October, I'm assuming, and they go into their next session, just like Congress does. They don't want to take on anything more. So it could be the same thing as well. You know what? This will be lingering when we come back. We'll probably take one next year. But right now, we're about ready to release all of our opinions for this session. We're going into a couple of months of vacay mode. I don't want to deal with it. And it could be something as stupid and ridiculous as that. I don't see that being the case.
It could.
But I guess it could be, theoretically.
It could. And, you have to go back to the fact that this case, the Snopes case, had already been granted cert post-Bruen. So that means 4 justices on this court voted to grant certiorari in the case. Already. Who were the 4? Yeah. We don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah.
We just know that 4 did. And here we have Alito, Gorsuch, Thomas, and Kavanaugh. That's a pretty safe bet that those were the 4. And, there's a different reason for giving that, because it was a post-Bruen environment. By granting cert and vacating the decision and remanding it back to the court was no fear. I mean, you could have had 9 justices vote to do that just to see how it would come out. Okay? So, yeah, there's a lot going on with this, ladies and gentlemen. I want to apologize. We didn't get to Thomas's dissent, but you know what? We have all week to talk about this. Andy Hoosier, you're going to be sitting in the seat for me on Friday, right? Or Thursday?
Yes.
No, Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. Thursday, I'll be live in Phoenix from 960 The Patriot. Looking forward to that. With attorneys on retainer, we'll be talking with Mark Victor out there at the actual Salem Studios in Phoenix. It's a beautiful place. I've been there before. Can't wait to do that for you. And I don't know what's going to be cooking on Wednesday yet. We're going to see if we can put a host in for you. If not, we're going to have to run an encore because I will be traveling. And it's kind of hard for me to sit in the seat and do that when I'm on the road. Or in the air, I should say. Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason. Right. Tell people where they can listen to you coming up in about, 10 minutes? Go for it.
Yeah, just a couple minutes left here. HoosierReason.com. Go and check me out as always. We're going to have a fun show today. The terrorist attack in Boulder, Colorado. We're going to focus on some of that.
It was a hate crime
today. So
I hate to
exactly hate crime. Well, and they officially charged that just a couple minutes ago from the FBI.
30.
So there's that. But always a pleasure, Mark. It's always fun for a Monday.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being here. It was a great topic today. And ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be the topic of the week, no doubt. There's other news busting. We'll get to that too. But this was a big one. Stay on top of it, guys. Join the National Rifle Association. It's never been more important. They don't want your guns. We're safe. Okay. All right. I hope today was an eye-opener for you. I'll see each and every one of you on the radio tomorrow. Stay safe. Enjoy your day. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.
You just filled your prescription for freedom with Mark Walters, presented by the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association on the Armed American Radio Network.
Texas Huntsman in the chat here. I love your comment here. If I thought that NRA membership would help Kavanaugh find his balls, I would buy one and donate 9 others. Let me tell you something, guys. The bigger and more powerful the NRA gets, does do that. Because you're talking 3.5, 4 million members, and we get it to 5 and 6 million back where it needs to be. It's a massive force to be reckoned with right now. Don't forget that. I know there's been a lot of bad publicity over the last few years, but that's changing, and that's what we're doing here is to help to change that. So if you can take it upon yourself to do that, that would be huge. The bigger this organization gets, the stronger the NRA ILA becomes. It's a big deal. So, but I appreciate the comment. Let's see. Sharp's discussion with Cam wasn't about how he just saved a bundle by switching to Geico, Scott Allen. No, I didn't do that. Let's see. All right, guys. Well, listen, I've still got more work to do and all that fun stuff. Get the podcast up for you. Guys, we're real close to busting out a podcast episode, video podcast for you in what would be a second hour of this program after the show airs. So stay tuned. I was in conversations about that just today. So that's going to be happening fairly quickly. And it would have been wonderful today to continue this conversation in an FCC-free environment. That much I can tell you. But it was a little bit too soon for us to do it today, but it's coming very, very soon. You'll be the first to know. All right, guys, love you. Thanks for being here. Thanks to our affiliates. Thanks for watching online. Please like and share the post. Follow us on social media. Help us take it back from the commies that stole it from us a few years back, last 4 years anyway. And we'll see each and every one of you on the radio tomorrow live, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Stay safe.